coming back from recess this week will face two big questions. Can Congress avert a government shutdown? And is it time for them to reassess Mitch McConnell's leadership role after another on-camera freeze renewed questions about his health? Republican Senator Mike Rounds joins me now. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me, especially on a holiday Sunday. I do want to start with Leader McConnell, that scary moment where we saw, as I mentioned, where we saw him freeze again in public. You said that you do expect him to be straightforward and level with the Republican conference when you all get back this coming week. What questions do you have for him?
Yeah, I spoke with Mitch yesterday afternoon and told him I was going to be doing an interview, and I wanted to personally touch base with him before I did that. And he was in good shape. He was direct. He said, he said, I had that concussion, and he said, they warned me that I would be lightheaded in the future and that I've got to be aware of it. He said, it happened twice. He said, it just so happens I'm doing it in front of reporters. But he felt good yesterday. He said he's got to watch his hydration levels. Dr. Monahan, who is also my physician there at the Senate, he's sharp. He says it exactly the way that it is. And if he says, that Mitch is ready to go, then Mitch is ready to go. But Mitch will come back in front of us, and he'll discuss it with the entire team. He's been busy. He's been working around his own state, but he's also been doing the fundraising that is required of a leader. And I think that's been a big job for him as well during this break.
So he told you that it was a result of the concussion that he had. Did he give you any more information? And does he need to be more clear, not just with your conference when you all meet this coming week, but with the American public, particularly his constituents in Kentucky?
Mitch is sharp and he is shrewd. He understands what needs to be done. I'll leave it up to him as to how he wants to discuss that with the American public, but there's no doubt in my mind that he is perfectly capable of continuing on at this stage of the game, and he's got a good team around him. He's done a good job of developing that leadership team. They've been supportive of him during the time in which he was out of the Senate for a while. The team did a great job. My seatmate, John Thune here in South Dakota, picked up the reins and worked it well, and he had a great team around him as well. So I'm not worried about that at all. We've got a good team in place, and Mitch is there, and I think Mitch will be able to answer any questions that may come up.
So you're comfortable with him staying on as leader?
Oh, yes. No question. Yeah. And look, there's a lot of folks out there who would like to see him go, but that's because he is a very capable leader. And he's one of these kind of guys that if you could take him out of the leadership role in advance, you might end up, in a better position if you were a competitor of his. But on the Republican side, we all understand that he's good. He's good for our party. He sees the long road ahead. He looks a long ways ahead. And when all the rest of us are sitting back, he's the guy that takes the spears and the arrows so that we don't have to. So, no, he's the right guy, the right spot. And at this stage of the game, I think he'll continue on.
I want to ask about the trip that President Biden took to Florida yesterday to assess hurricane damage. His administration is asking for $16 billion more in FEMA disaster relief, not just for Florida, but also for the tropical storm that hit Southern California, the devastating wildfires in Hawaii. Should Republicans support that funding?
I can't speak for all Republicans. I'm a former governor. I can tell you that when it comes to emergencies, that's when the government needs to be there. So personally, I intend to take a look at what they're requesting, but I'm inclined to support it. And the reason is because, look, constitutionally, we have a responsibility for our national defense. But we've also got a responsibility to take care of those that are most in need during an emergency situation. People judge us as to how we respond in those emergencies. And a serious emergency like what you saw in Florida or in Hawaii, those are issues that all of us should come together on. And that's something that the president has to take a leadership role on, but the rest of us have to be supportive in making sure that the resources are there for those that are most impacted during a time of need.
Speaking of government spending, as you well know, there is a looming government shutdown now just 4 weeks away. President Biden wants a stopgap funding bill. It's not clear whether your fellow Republicans in the House are going to support that. Should they?
Well, to begin with, the Senate has, for the first time since 2018, we've passed all 12 of our appropriation bills out of the Senate Appropriations Committee. They're ready for floor action. That's a great step forward on the on the Senate side. and this is on a bipartisan basis. We have those coming out of the Appropriations Committee. Now, the House has got their own process in place. I'm not going to comment right now on the process. I think Speaker McCarthy should have the independence to be able to make and negotiate with his team on that side and to bring together enough votes to pass it. What we do know is a government shutdown is not good for anybody. We want to avoid that, and that means Republicans and Democrats are going to have to come together to get a consensus in divided government. Let's not have a government shutdown, but let's begin the process of talking about our spending. And spending, we've been spending way over what we've been bringing in for a long time. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but we should be making some positive steps in the right direction to start slowing down the spending, and we've got to start bringing back the revenues back in to government again because of a growing economy. That's got to happen as well, or we'll never get this under control.
Senator, you heard the Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo, talking about her trip to China, touting the progress she says she made on establishing channels of communication. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I've heard the Secretary speak on several different occasions, and she is correct when she says that dialogue is very important and that we should be talking as much as we can. But you also have to take the reality into account that it does not appear that the Chinese Communist government necessarily wants to do more than simply talk. Actions are critical, and at this stage of the game, the Chinese government does not seem to be too concerned about what could happen to their economy if they are not willing to bend some of the rules that they most certainly have put in place. And let me just give you an example. 2017, their version of Congress passed what they called the National Intelligence Law. Two of the sections of that particular law are extremely dangerous. First part was, I believe it's Section 7, basically requires that any company that is registered in China or that does business in China must cooperate with their national intelligence agencies, and they have to keep that cooperation secret. But furthermore, Section 10 of that same code requires that if those same companies come outside and they're doing business out of China, that they have to, particularly the tech companies, that they have to provide users' data to the Chinese Communist Party. That's wrong, and that's one of the biggest issues that we've got right now in dealing with this particular government in China. It's not that we don't want to be on good relations with China, but it's a two-way street, and right now it's only running one direction.
Senator, I want to turn to the 2024 race. Donald Trump is set to face 4 separate criminal trials for 91 alleged felonies. This weekend, CNN released a new poll of polls that shows the former president far and away the front runner. 58% is where he stands right now in that poll of polls. If Donald Trump is convicted of a crime, could you support him as the Republican nominee?
I'm pleased to say that I am supporting Tim Scott, and there's a reason why I'm supporting Tim Scott. Number one, he's a guy that will unite the country. Not a lot of people know him yet, but he's a guy that you can trust. He's a guy that you will never be embarrassed about supporting. I want to be able to tell my kids when they're there now, or my grandkids, that I supported a guy who I thought would be good for the entire country. Tim Scott's my guy. I'm going to stick with him. I think he's the best in the field, and that's the direction that I want to see go. He's only got 3-4% of the popular vote right now, but he's working behind the scenes. He's got resources in the bank. I think he's going to be able to make the appropriate moves, and I think he'll do a good job in the debates coming up as more and more people take a look at it and see what he can do.
I appreciate that you are a supporter of your colleague, Senator Tim Scott. But if Donald Trump is the nominee and if he is convicted of a crime, could you support him?
I'm hoping truly that we get to the point where I don't have to make that type of a decision.
But what if you do?
For me personally, I was there on January 6th. I saw what happened. I'm not happy about what happened. I was not happy with his performance on that particular day. So for me, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to look at other candidates. For mine, it's Tim Scott. And Tim is the guy that I think can unite this country. And once again, I'm going to come right back down to it. He's not well known right now, so he's not polling as high as some of the other folks are. But we need to bring this country together. Tim Scott's the guy that can do it.
And again, I appreciate that you're sticking behind the guy that you supported, but he is so far behind Donald Trump right now. It's very early, but he's very far
long
behind.
way to go yet, Dana.
So I understand. I definitely
long
understand.
way to go yet.
Let me just ask you one other question on 2024. If, again, Donald Trump is the nominee, could he beat Joe Biden in 2024?
We don't know. We don't know. That's one of the concerns that a lot of people have got, me as well. It's the reason why I think if we bring in a uniter rather than a divider, I think we've got a better shot at doing what's right for this country long term, and that's what I want. Look, right now, Joe Biden, I know he calls it Bidenomics, but let's take a look at what it does for people that actually have to live with it. South Dakota is a good example. From the time that Joe Biden took office until right now, living expenses for an average household in South Dakota are up $917 a month. That's over $11,000 more in living expenses per year. Across the entire country, it's about $912 a month, well over $11,000 a year. Energy prices are up. Gas prices are up over 54%. That's something that we've got to do something about, and you can't do it with this approach to the economy.
All right, Senator, we're out of time. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dana. Bye-bye.
Up next, Ron.